So as always, as I'm getting prepared to start the next set of models, I can go through and do a full model review of that kit. And today we're going to be looking at, it's a bit of an older boxing, but we're going to be looking at monograms. This is particular one's Revell, but this was initially released as a monogram kit, but they're F-14A Tomcat. Now, compared to other Tomcats you can get on the market today, things like the Hobby Boss and the Tamiya and Hasegawa, this is a pretty ancient kit and it has its issues, but for the average builder who, you know, just wants to have a finished looking model, it's not a bad kit. So as usual, I'm gonna go through the plastic, and then we'll take a look at the decal, at the instructions, and wrap up with the decal. So unfortunately, it is showing its age. This initially was a 1993 molding. I take that caveat. Let me actually check. If I haven't mentioned it before, Scalemates is an amazing reference when it comes to kits. This is a perfect example where I want to just know when this particular molding was, you know, designed, by the way, or molded initially, and I can just search for it, monogram F-14A, and you can go into their website and you can see the exact history of the kit. So actually, this particular kit was initially molded in 1981, and then reboxed over the years. I actually had this boxing here when I was a kid. That's the one I remember from when I was a young lad. Oh, you know what? Wait a minute. This is not. Let's see full history. So yeah, this was actually initially tooled by Revell in 1978. Monograms boxing is a different. Yeah, it's a completely new tool kit. So this one is a 1979, but this is why this is good, because the molding actually says it's a 1993 1993 copyright, but the plastic on the bottom here says copyright 1993. So it's curious just to figure that out. But yeah, there we go. See, new box. So it looks like this is initially a 1978 Revell tooling. Anyways, if you haven't seen Scalemates, I highly recommend it when you're trying to figure out what kit you're going to get. But this is definitely an older boxing of this kit. There is raised panel lines for most of it, softer detail, but I mean, for what I want to do with it, it's not too bad. So it comes in this particular one, it all shows up in just one giant bag, and then you have a separate bag here with some specific A details like the engine exhaust and some of the other stuff, and then your canopy is on a separate sprue and separately bagged, which is nice. So let's start by looking at the two fuselages here. I don't believe these come molded. This one comes loose, this one comes the way it is. Are they numbered? They are not numbered. So on this particular sprue, you get the fuselage top, nose landing gear, a single pilot, some gear doors, and your instrument panels. Interestingly, you only get one pilot, even though it is a twin-seat aircraft. So I'm gonna have to rob a pilot from a different kit in order to make this work with what I wanna do. But as I mentioned, it's somewhat accurate for a late Model A. There is some flash starting to form on it, especially you can see here on the sprues, around the nose. The tooling is starting to show its age. It will require a little bit of cleanup. I'm gonna live with the raised panel lines. You know, for those of you who want to have a cleaner look, you can go with the modern. But I mean, you know, a Tamiya kit's gonna be north of $100. You can pick one of these things up, you know, 20 bucks, you know, at a sale. I think I bought this one used for pennies on the dollar. And you can clearly see here where the tooling's been ground and a new copyright was put on. And of course, Revell puts the copyright on the tail. That's gonna have to be sanded down. There's ejector pin markings that are on the lower few, like tail, that I want to clean up. So I mean, there's a little bit of work involved in it, but it is what it is. The lower fuselage, again, is kind of molded in one solid piece. Your gear bays are molded into your fuselage. You do have this open tunnel for the intakes, and you'll have an engine fan face, so you'll be able to go look down and see the fan face, but nowhere near as detailed as you would get in a more modern tooling from one of the newer companies. But overall, it's not too bad for a quick, especially if you have a younger builder or someone who's just getting into the hobby, or you just want to have a quick build, which is kind of where I am, just a quick build model. I'm not worried too much about super high accuracy and detail. So, I mean, shape-wise, I can't even tell you if it's accurate. I'm assuming it's pretty accurate, but obviously, like I said, it's got raised panel lines, and if you want a heavily detailed and weathered model, it's going to take a little bit of work. Moving on through the sprues, like as I mentioned, they all come in this one solid bag, which does mean there's a good chance for things like that, parts to get knocked off bags, off sprues, I should say, and potentially damaged when they get knocked off sprues. This one's not too bad, but you get tearing when the sprues rip like that. It's just extra work you need to do to clean it up. So this is all you get. The entire model is on 2 sprues. It really kind of shows you how, the lack of detail that exists on this kit. So the sprues aren't numbered in any way, as far as I can tell. There's no differentiation between the sprues. You just get what you get. So on this sprue, you got your intake trunks, tail hooks, some cockpit parts, your burner cans for your exhausts, some main landing gear parts, ejection seats, cockpit tub with part of the nose wheel well on there as well. You've got your sidewinder fins. You've got both of these are your rails for your Phoenixes. You got your Phoenixes, your 4 Phoenixes. You also have your 2 Sparrows on those hard points. And over here, there's some more little bits and bobs. It looks like the pitot tube and control stick and throttle and some other stuff. The seats aren't too bad considering its age. There's some decent, even the landing gear, there's some ejector pin marks that you might want to clean up. But the seats are, some of the seats from this age, they're just flat sides. This actually has quite a bit of detail and, a bit of weathering and some dry brushing and whatnot, and some washes, and that will really pop. Same with the landing gear. It's not spectacular, but if you clean up those seams and a little bit of Mr. Surfacer, and then, played with some weathering techniques, these could turn out looking like a decent landing gear. So, it's not horrible. Same with the cockpit. Lots of raised detail in there, good dry brushing, and that'll just pop and look really good. Seat belts are molded onto the seats, so it's not a horrible kit. Not a Tamiya or a Hasegawa, but it's definitely not like a Fujimi or something. It's a mid-ranged kit that you can turn into something that looks decent. One thing of note, the Sparrows are mounted hard to the pylons, so if you want to build one that does not have the Sparrows, you'll have to cut the missiles off the pylon. That's what I'm going to have to do, because I'm going to be building a clean bird, so I'm going to have to do that, peel the Sparrows off, clean all those up a little bit, and then move on. The final big sprue you've got the sidewalls of the nose wheel well, as well as your gear doors, some more main gear doors, the wheels, lots of ejector pin markings on the wheels. Then that's the outside of the wheels, which is even worse. If it was on the inside, maybe you could live with it, but on the outside, that's what you're going to see, and that's going to take a little bit of sanding to clean those up. But you also got some pitot tubes and antennas, some missile rails, some more doors, the ladder for the crew entry. The other thing to note is this aircraft is not designed to have the landing gear up. You can see how the nose gear doors are molded onto the sidewall. So if you want to build it with the gear up, there's quite a bit of modification that's going to have to go into it. Usually the fit is pretty bad because it's never designed to be closed. So you have to play around with that a little bit. Vertical stabilizers are here. There's the rest of your burner can detail, your engine intake detail. The wings as well, your upper and lower wings. You'll see it's got this ratcheting system. The kit's designed to have movable wings. You can see there's a pivot point and the ratchet, and then there's an arrow here that lines up with the arrow here, and that sinks your wings, and if you move one wing, both wings move. It's very much that 1970s toy style construction that we had back in the day. My plan for this is actually to use Caracal decals and complete this as prototype number 3 when it did the asymmetric wing test in the 1980s. So one wing will be straight out and one wing will be back at about a 60-degree angle. So I'm actually going to have to completely disengage those gears and re-engage them. I'm just going to glue them, to be perfectly honest. I'm not even going to have them move. I'm just going to glue the pin in place. Probably means on the fuselage half, yeah, there you go. There's your hinge point. So you can see how the wing would, let's see, this wing would go here. This wing would literally lock into that hinge point, and you would have the ability to rotate your wing, and then that gearing would move both wings at the same time. And that's, you can see here's a little rail that runs on to ensure the wings don't droop or anything. But as I said, I want to glue my wings on in a specific orientation, so that I have the final look of what I want, which, I mean, there's also, it's not perfect. This is a late A. The early A's, the prototypes and the earlier aircraft had larger strakes here and had a slightly different beaver tail area back here. So there might be some modifications you have to do depending on what aircraft. I'm gonna have to modify it, but I'm not going to be too terribly worried about it. I'm gonna kind of go with, hey, it looks good from where I am, and live with it. So as well, on these lower fuselage, there's this side panel here, like a cutout, and you got the 2 different inserts you use depending on what version. They've got different vents and stuff, and I'm not terribly sure which ones you need. So I think it's a difference between the A and the, I don't even know. It doesn't, it only tells you to use one piece here, 106. 106, so piece 25 you're not even supposed to use. So it must be a later version that's only used on like a D or something. But you do have that option. It doesn't really tell you what parts are not to be used. Yeah. So the you have that option depending on what version. If you are doing a later version of the kit, you have those later parts. And again, your turkey feathers and everything. And this is your undernose, the little pod. I believe it's a video camera pod that they had. And then, as I mentioned, the cockpit is 2 separate pieces and is separately bagged, so it doesn't get damaged in transportation. Unfortunately, there's not much else to go over on the kit itself. That's about it. Little things, like I said, the detail's a little soft. There's no detail at all for back here behind the pilot, and when the canopy is closed, you do see a lot of that detail back here, but there's nothing actually there. On the kit, it's just flat, so you'd kind of have to, you know, fudge it a little bit, do some references, put something back there if you really want to. The instructions are kind of typical monogram instructions with these open sheets. As usual, you get your little talk about what the aircraft is, what do you call them? Instructions, your warnings and whatnot. Some of your little notes for what you need to do on the kit. And then down here you have your paint callouts. They also, this is typical monogram from back in the day. There's no FS numbers. You get FS numbers here for the camo, but not here. So flat black, silver, aluminum. What's metallic? Metallic? What's metallic? Is it supposed to be steel? We already have aluminum, so what's metallic, right? So it's just things like that that is a little vague. You know what I mean? And you have to kind of figure it out as you go. I don't even know what they want you to paint D. I'm assuming it's, yeah, it's the area around the engines. So it's more of like a jet exhaust or a burnt metallic or something. But anyways, brown, which brown? Light brown. Great. You know, thanks for the reference. Yellow, red, green, dark green, satin, white, gray, dark gray, and light gray. So there's just a lot of random kind of colors. Like at least over here, LMNO and F, you do get a little bit of FS numbers, so you can match them to modern paints. But for the most part, you got to do your research. So the building of the kit, like most kits, you start with the cockpit. It's really basic, as you can see. There's just the cockpit tub, the 2 instrument panels, and then you put some details on those instrument panels, and then there's a little joystick that goes there for the Rio in the back to control things. Cockpit tub goes in, ejection seats, then the seats and the stick go in. over here. And then on to step 5 is when you're supposed to drop the pilot in. As I said, you only get one pilot, which is kind of weird for the Tomcat. So you can have to source it if you want. And then it talks about looking at the rear page for painting, but it doesn't give you any call outs. Like, it literally says optional pilot, see rear page for painting. There's no call outs for the, oh, here we go, pilot painting. White helmet, dark green suit, olive drab life vest and parachute strap, silver buckles. So it tells you how to paint it. Here, so there's a decal that's supposed to go on the inside of the intake, and it's telling you that if you're not going to paint the model, to add the decal. So that also shows you the age of this kit, when it was actually expected that you might not paint the model. You might just assemble it and leave it bare plastic and just put the decal straight on top of the plastic. So it's very much a toy-like model, which again, it depends. Like, I'm okay with it because I have a plan. Yeah. On to step 7, you get the wings glued together. This is where it's telling you to sync the wings together and not glue them, and that's how you get your wing movement, and you glue the two fuselage halves together. Gear doors being put in place. It's also telling you that all door edges need to be painted red. This is where your forward nose, your gun panel on the side, your nose, and all the other stuff gets installed. Exhaust cans going in along with the paint callouts for there. These are where your missile rails get installed and your missiles, and they're showing you how to paint their stripes that we painted on the decals, not on the missiles. No decals at all. You got to paint. You got to paint the missiles yourself. On to step 13 is the vertical tails. 14, 15, you're doing main landing gear. 16 is gear doors, and then 17, 18, and 19, you're doing the other gear doors. 20, 21, nose wheels and its gear and all the associated bits. And then 22, you're doing the sidewinders and the sparrows, and again, you're expected to paint all the stripes yourself, and then that gets glued on. And then 25, 26 is the other side, and then your final bits are the canopy, and it's showing you some of the paint callouts around the nose. And then down here is your full paint markings and decal guides. So it's yeah, not the greatest. The decal sheets, luckily it's from 2009 because that's when this kit was released. Anything all older than that, you probably start running into some problems in terms of age. Now, that being said, there are some modifications I'm going to have to do to the kit. As I mentioned, I am building it with the wings in an odd position, so I'm going to have to glue those wings in that position while I'm in assembly. I also plan to build it with the gear retracted, so that's going to involve me having to do some surgery. You'll see like the rear door is hard molded to the landing gear, so I'm gonna have to cut it off. And as these the nose gear doors are hard molded onto the sides, I have to cut those off, glue them into fuselage before I assemble everything. That way, you know, for example, you'll have your lower bit and you can cut those gear doors off, and then you can start putting them in here and holding them and getting them squared up and cleaned up and super glue and all that fun stuff to make sure it's a nice solid joint. Same with these gear doors. I'll probably start assembling them while the kit is like this before I put it all together. It gives me a bit more ability to get in here and clean things up and hide the seams and stuff before I drop more pieces on, because it will be mounted to a stand. So I'm gonna have to figure that out. The gear doors are gonna have to go up. Yeah, get the intakes painted nicely so that you don't have to worry about that after. That being said, I think the belly's painted white anyways, so it's not terribly hard. But I'm probably gonna do the white paint trick, fill it with white paint. Although I can't do that because I have to have the engine faces in there. I can drop the engine faces in later. I gotta play around with it and see how it's gonna go together. And then I gotta cut the sparrows off because it had the missile pylons but did not have missiles attached to them. So I gotta play that game, and then the fun job of painting it all. So yeah, I mean, it's not anything special to look at because it's an older kit. I feel like anybody who started building model kits in the 90s or earlier has probably built this kit at least once in their life. I'm just gonna pull out the decals for this. I still have them in the my binder here. Here we go, F-14. F-14. Let's see here. There we go. That's the kit decals. Yeah, I have a couple of other things I need to do while I have these out. But yeah, so that's the kit decals there. Again, nothing spectacular. It's for aircraft 159449. Pretty early in the construction process of the F-14s, it looks like, because the no 157. Yeah, the prototypes were 157. So yeah, anyways, so it's aircraft, what did I say it was? 159449, based off of USS America. It doesn't say anything about the scheme itself in terms of what years, but I would guess mid 80s, based off of the time frame of the kit. Decals aren't horrible. Lots of stencils. You can read what the stencils say. Again, the decals, according to this, it's copyright 2004 for the decals, so they're only about 20 years old. So again, not horrible. You've got your rudder stripes. Everything seems to like be in register and look decent. So I mean, if this is a kit that you had, I would easily say that this should have no problem going together. You should be fine to use these kit decals. Ejection seat markings are a little on the fake light side. It's really hard to see where it says danger. But no, overall, you know what? It's not bad. There's a bit of a mark. Oh yeah. A bit of a problem with the clear coat here. But again, they're 20-year-old decals, so you can't expect them to be perfect. And I don't plan to use these. I plan to use, as I said, the aftermarket ones, which I have right here, the Caracal decals for the prototype. This was my plan for what I'm going to use it for this kit. So anyways, I'm not going to go too much into this. As I said, I feel like anybody out there who has built a kit or started building kits in the 90s or earlier has probably built at least one of these, you know, Revell monogram F-14As over the years. So nothing super spectacular to talk about. Yeah, anyways, definitely a kit if you're looking to build a relatively easy / cheap F-14. Grab one of these. Don't be afraid of it, even though it's an older monogram kit. It's not horrible. You'll be able to build it up as a decent kit. You can see on the side of the box art here what the finished kit can look like. That's actually surprising because, oh no, I guess it does match the callouts. But anyways, not a horrible kit. You know, you can definitely turn it into something decent if you put a little bit of effort into it, which I plan to do. So yeah, that's that. Keep watching on my monthly What's on My Desk updates, and keep an eye out on part 1 of the time lapse if you want to see that. So that is the Revell 1/48 scale F-14A. And yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time.